Howdy y'all, it's Ben. Today I'm coming at you with another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2023 movie Fabled. Fabled is directed by Glenn Wise and it is starring not really anyone that I had heard of before this movie. It has one person in there, his name is Michael J. Patterson, he is the main character in this film. And he was in, I think, a single episode of Law & Order. And then that's been about it. I mean, there's other films and different projects and stuff that these people have been in, but nothing that I had heard of before, I think. I am almost positive. Anyways, so this film is about a group of people who get the, what is it, the magical elixir of life, I think. It's the Fountain of Youth. That's what it is. It's the Fountain of Youth. And they get some water from that, and they have to deal with the fact that they are no longer aging. And so they're trying, some are trying to figure out how to reverse it, what they call the curse, and then other people are trying to I think they're trying to make it more sustainable and not have any drawbacks. And because it does come with some, as you learn throughout the movie. I guess, sorry, spoiler, but also, I don't know. I mean, it's considered a curse, and that's written in the synopsis that I saw on IMDb. So anyways, this movie, unfortunately, was kind of eh. I don't dislike a lot of movies, and I don't dislike this one. I don't. But I don't, particularly as I've gotten older, I've definitely gotten a more like, they made a movie. That's fantastic. Because I've toyed around with some trailers and doing some stuff, working on productions and working in video production in general. And, you know, sometimes it's like, holy crap, how did we actually put that together? Because of all the different obstacles between people, things, and all kinds of other obstructions that can pop in your way and cause issues. And I kind of just respect the fact that people try to make a film and actually try to make it good and into something that they like. And I saw some of that in this film. I will say that the film did have some technical flaws. One of the bigger things I've noticed is they had a problem. I don't think it was directly focus. There were parts where it looked blurred, where I was like, that's an interesting choice. I imagine, my guess is that what happened is that they were trying to do a more blur effect. They may not have had like a full sensor camera where they could completely blur out the background just using the lens. They probably tried to use a blur effect and it didn't work right, or it could be possible that they didn't get the focus completely right. It's not to say that the subjects were out of focus. They weren't. It was just, so the subjects were partially out of focus. So you would see like right around the shoulder, right? You would see some blurrage. And I was just like, okay. And I don't always comment on that kind of stuff because like particularly, that doesn't really happen that much in like in your big Hollywood films. That stuff just kind of doesn't pop up, or I don't see it. And if you're looking at more independent, smaller films, which that is the case with this one, I'm just kind of like, whatever. I mean, it's like you shoot the film with a skeleton crew and you do the best you can. And that's, I mean, it is what it is. So I don't usually harp as much on that stuff. And so there was that. There was some, I think I saw some technical issues. The story to me was kind of, it was a little bit hard to follow. I struggled with, okay, they were trying to make it mysterious and have like, okay, we're going to give you breadcrumbs and slowly reveal the story. It didn't feel like that they really revealed important. They revealed some important stuff, and I guess they did reveal key and parts of the story, but the movie also ended on kind of a very like a kind of note that was open-ended. And I just I didn't feel like that they walked through the story very well and developed the characters a whole bunch. I think that might probably be the biggest issue, is I just didn't feel like there were a lot of character development on any end. It was, the characters were kind of just, they were pretty static in my opinion. They were kind of did what they were going to do from the start of the movie all the way through, and that can create that kind of can create a situation where I'm not as invested in the story. And so it's really good to find a story where you try to develop characters, develop the story, right? Move forward, progress, change, something happens, right? And there's stuff that happens, but it just, yeah, I'd just be reiterating myself that it just didn't feel like very much development was occurring. The actors, the acting, the actresses, right? The actors, actresses, the acting was sometimes it was okay. Other times it felt like they were really acting. And that's not a good thing. It felt like they were in a movie or they were on stage, right? They were very aware that they were on stage, and they were trying. If we take what the universe is, right? The stuff is true in this universe, right? These different fantasy elements, okay? If we take those and suppose that they are true, and then we place like our rules or the rules of the universe, let's say, on them, right? Does it kind of fall, do they feel like characters that would actually be in this universe, right? Or does it feel like the actors and actresses are blatantly, like their characters, it feels forced, I guess, is the right way that I can put it, is that it is kind of, it's pushing and they're trying hard to envelop these characters versus them kind of existing in the character, right? They're kind of pushing to try to create that, but it really just comes off as someone trying to be someone they're not, pretending, right? And unfortunately that pops up with, I think, at least one of the characters, I think multiple. It was, I don't think it was the worst thing in the world, but the movie was from an acting standpoint. So I really like the stopwatch motif, but the thing about that is I think they should have used it more. It was an interesting part. Personally, I think stopwatches are cool, and it adds a cool element into the movie to have that as a key part. And I think that they really should have used it more. But they didn't. Now, it was okay. But here's the thing, is that film is a very visual medium. And so this leads me into another con, unfortunately, is that film is a very visual medium, and you really should be using film, like the video part, the visual, to tell your story. That should be a very integral part, right? You can have dialogue, right? And you can have a great score, fantastic. But you really should be using the visual medium, the film, to tell your story. That is the most impactful and effective way to communicate your story. And that is, they did use it to some degree, but it definitely felt like a low-budget film. And I think they probably should have looked at the set design more heavily, or tried to turn a different topic, per se, like to something else that doesn't, because this is fantasy based. And so when I'm thinking fantasy, I'm thinking of cool visual elements, something very out of this world, even if it's a hard fantasy, right? Something that's more realistic fantasy, where it kind of places unrealistic elements into the real world, right? It would have been greater for them to play a little bit more with the production and the set design and costumes, have stuff that's a little bit more vibrant and colorful, some for fantasy stuff, fantasy creatures and stuff like that. They had a little bit of whispers, but they didn't actually have the creatures in their film, which I understand that might be complicated to try to get it to move, whatever it may be. But having some fun with that set design, the colors, doing something that pushes it more outside of our real world, right? To kind of create that, okay, we're in a different place. This isn't just this isn't just Earth, right? It's something else. And I don't think they embraced that. Even though the movie, that the thing is that the movie pushed that was the case. And I know that they were supposed to be in the real world. It was just kind of like it was just kind of realistic fantasy where, you know, you got the real world, but then underneath it, you have this fantasy. But at the same time, it would have been a good idea for them to take kind of the fantasy element and to use some pizzazz or something. Because otherwise, like, why do we need to introduce these other things, right? These other fantasy elements to try to allude to the fact that we have this fantasy magicalness, but we're not going to show it in our story. I just don't think that that's an effective way. If you're going to stay more hard fantasy, if you're just going to do something like the Fountain of Youth, don't try to introduce the other fantasy like, oh, there's other creatures out there like they did. And so I did struggle with this film, but it was kind of entertaining and some of the dialogue was all right. And it wasn't completely miserable of a watch. I found a lot of flaws with it. And so anyways, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Please like, comment what you thought of this video, comment what you thought of this movie, and subscribe. I will see you all later.